Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Phillies Talk Podcast. It's your weekly Philadelphia Phillies talk show all about your favorite team, the Philadelphia Phillies. My name is Rich Baxter, and wow, it's been a long time since I did the last Phillies Talk Podcast. In fact, it goes back to May 8th, which was Mother's Day weekend, when I last released a show. Of course, all of the longtime listeners that may also read the blog should know by now my podcast co-host and great friend of many years, James Mulry, Jimmy, who has done the show with me for, 10 years, passed away on May 20th. I extend again my extreme condolences to his family. I know his wife took it hard. She was up visiting with him, had to travel an hour plus on a daily basis sometimes to get up to visit Jim in the hospital. He went back and forth, doing well, then he got bad. Finally, on May 20th, unfortunately, he passed away. So I will miss Jimmy on this show tremendously, but even more, I miss him on a daily basis because Jim and I used to correspond quite often on the Phillies. And even just daily life, we were friends off the air, and he was a very good friend of mine, and I'll miss him dearly. So, Jimmy, the rest of these podcasts, as long as this series goes, is dedicated to you. You were the inspiration initially for me to even start the Phillies Talk Podcast, and before that, we talked all about Philadelphia sports, including the Eagles, Flyers, and the Sixers. So I know you're looking down on the podcast here and still giving me a thumbs up, encouraging me to take the show to another level and certainly continue it. So a little later in the program, I'm going to have some highlights and some behind-the-scenes audio that has occurred over the last few years of doing the podcast, and hope you enjoy those clips as well. And it was hard. I wanted to do this show a few weeks ago, but I just couldn't bring myself to get back onto the mic that quickly. But here it is 1 month later, the start of summer, the summer solstice here, June 20th, 2016, as I'm doing this show, and a little time has passed since Jim has passed away, so that's what they say. I guess time sort of heals a lot of wounds, not all the way, but certainly helps to mend them a little bit. Well, let's get to the podcast without hesitation here. The Phillies have been absolutely awful in the past month and a half. We saw a very good opening to the season in March, late March, out of spring training into April, opening day, and through the early part of May, actually, the Phillies were playing way above 500 for the first time in many years. A lot of people had a renewed interest in the team, but I'll tell you, in the last 6 weeks, that renewed interest has become a big concern now that the Phillies have really dropped into the bottom categories of most of the offensive categories. That's been where they've suffered the most. The offense is 29th and 30th in the whole league in as far as scoring runs, batting average, on-base average, things like that. So Phillies looking for answers, so to speak. A lot of the younger players that were doing so well early on in the year have really clammed up. Michael Franco in the midst of a huge slump. Obadiah Herrera, his batting average is good. He's had a few mental lapses on the field in the last couple games. For instance, there was 2 outs in the inning. The second out was caught by him out in center field. He nonchalantly threw the ball up into the stands. He thought it was the third out. A couple of other Phillies on the field also thought it was the third out, and seeing Herrera do what he did. They started to run off the field, and then all of a sudden it was known that the Phillies just made the second out. So a lot of concentration issues, it seems like, with this younger Phillies team. Their heads are elsewhere. They're obviously not on the baseball field, thinking about maybe what they're going to do after the game, thinking about maybe what sports car they want to buy with all this money that gets thrown at them all the time here with these big contracts and all, thinking about anything but what they should be doing on the field. So that's my primary observation of this team in the last, say, 3 weeks for sure. They've been losing like crazy. Little couple of stats here on the last 20 games or so. And the real bad news, of course, that within the last 20 games, the Phillies have only won 4 of those games, and that's almost hard to believe. But if you look at the last 10 games, they're winners in only 1 of those games. So 1-9 in their last 10. It kind of gives you an idea of how this team has free-fallen into an area where they haven't seen this bad of a performance since probably last year sometime or prior to that. So Phillies desperately looking for an answer. Their starting pitching has appeared to desert them as well. Several of the starters now carrying ERAs in the high 5s. A look at this afternoon's game. Of course, they're wrapping up the series with the Arizona Diamondbacks at home in Philadelphia before the team continues on to Minnesota to play the Twins in some interleague play. And then they're going to go out to the West Coast and play the red-hot San Francisco Giants. So it doesn't get too much easier for them as the schedule continues on here into the summer season now that it's the first day of summer. And what a great time it is to be a baseball fan. A great time when it's summertime. A lot of dads probably got out to the ballpark yesterday, being Father's Day. Maybe even a little treat from their sons or family. Probably a special time for them as well. So getting back to this series wrap-up with Arizona, we have Jeremy Hellickson, who started off the season fairly well with the Phillies, but all of a sudden he's at 4-5 with a 4.46 ERA for the team, as the Phillies are now 10 games under 500 with a 30-40 record. So not too much good news to tell you about with this first podcast back from the long break that I had in doing the show. Not too much great things to talk about. But we're going to try to keep espousing the positive, so to speak. Let's look at the lineup of starting pitchers, probable pitchers, as we head west, going into that interleague play against the Minnesota Twins. On Tuesday night, June 21st, we're going to see Aaron Nola. On Wednesday evening, of course, 8:10 p.m. starts local time for us here in the Philadelphia area. We're going to have Adam Morgan take the mound for the Phillies. He's had a rough year, 1-6 with a 6.49 ERA. And then wrapping up the series in Minnesota will be Jared Eichhoff. He's 4-9 with a 3.49 ERA for the Phillies. After that series, of course, we're heading out to San Francisco, and it'll be interesting to see how the Phils make out there. Of course, they've been playing some mediocre teams in the last few series. Certainly the Diamondbacks don't qualify as being as one of those great teams, but they just can't seem to even beat the mediocre teams. It's going to be interesting to see how the Phillies fare out in San Fran, and also with this interleague play, they're notoriously not very good during the interleague type of games. In fact, let me check the stats on that for you here on the podcast. And so far this year, the Phillies are 5-5 in interleague play. So not as terrible as they have been over the past few years so far in interleague play. Maybe the Phillies and this team specifically excelling a little bit towards some of these American League teams. Certainly with Ryan Howard being a DH might not hurt matters. But 5-5 as the Phillies are going to head west and play those Minnesota Twins out in Minnesota, as they call it, in the next series. So looking around at the different opponents and how the Phillies have fared so far against them, the Phillies have been absolutely awful in the past few games against the Nationals. They're 4-8 on the season so far. Toronto 1-3, St. Louis 1-3, San Diego Padres 3-1. New York Mets, they've split so far with them, going 500 with them with 6 early games into the season. They're 3-3 record against them. The Milwaukee Brewers 4-3, so they've sort of mastered the Brewers a little bit. The Miami Marlins 4-2. Detroit 1-2. Cleveland, they shut them out and swept them 3-0. Cincinnati Reds 2-4. And the Cubbies, not surprisingly, they're 1-5 against that powerhouse team of the Cubs this year. Runs scored, they only scored 13 runs in those 6 games against the Cubs, and they had 33 runs scored against them. Atlanta 3-3. And, of course, Arizona, they've dropped the first 3 games to them so far in the series, wrapping it up today with the 4th game, but they're 0-3 against the Diamondbacks. So, I don't know. You got to kind of have some faith in this team to bring back some of those better times that the Phillies have experienced. They went 14-10 in the month of April. They dropped down a little bit, 12-16 in the month of May, but looking at it in this way, here on the 20th of June as I'm doing the podcast, in June, they're 4-14. Absolutely abysmal record. They've only scored 56 runs so far this month, June 2016, and they've had 109 runs scored against them. So it'll be interesting to see if this Phillies team can turn it around, find that early success that they had in April, playing above their heads probably, but they seemed like they were having an easy time of it. Who knows where that good play went? Maybe it was all the discipline of the first month of the season, and that sort of went out the window, as we see on a nightly basis now. A lot of these players are not sticking to major league values at times. So it'll be interesting to see what happens the rest of the season here with the Phillies. Of course, I don't think they're going to be contending for too much, so we can sort of take that out of the mix early on. Well, let's explore some other things here with Phillies Talk. And, of course, you can download the podcast at several different places on the internet. You can go to iTunes and Stitcher Radio, two great places to subscribe to podcasts. And you can also stop by the BaseballTalkRadio.com network of shows. Over 30 baseball shows, all talking about your favorite sport, of course, baseball, from just about most teams in the major leagues. There's a couple shows on Japanese baseball. One great show that I really love is Japan Baseball Weekly. Right now, they've been talking about the Olympics returning baseball as a sport in the past couple editions. So if you can get over to BaseballTalkRadio.com, please tune into that program. You can find out some firsthand information from across the world on what you'll be seeing in a couple years. Also, you can send us an email. Send it to rich@fightinphillies.com. If you have a comment or question about the show, want to voice your opinion, I'd be glad to get it on the show. You can just record your comment on your tablet or your PC into a file and send it to me by email, rich@fightinphillies.com. I'd love to get your comment on the show from wherever you listen to. I know we have some listeners out on the West Coast, some people that used to live in the Philadelphia area. And that's why we sort of started this podcast so many years ago. We wanted to bring some of that local flavor out to people that have moved away, some fans of the team that may not have ever been to the Philadelphia tri-state area here with Delaware and New Jersey, have never experienced it. Some fans from overseas in England and Europe and places like that, and even out into the Far East. So I want to take this time to also thank our listeners for tuning in and staying with the podcast. Appreciate you listening, and have a lot more fun things planned for the rest of the season, and I hope you enjoy it. So we'll be back after this message on the podcast here on Phillies Talk, talking more Phillies baseball.
Hi, I'm Gary Mack from Mets Musings, and you're listening to Rich and Jim on Phillies Talk, right here on BaseballPodcast.net, the home of baseball podcasts.
Hi, this is Gary Matthews. You're listening to Fighting Phillies Talk Podcast.
Brewtown Sports is your source for Brewers news and notes. Join Mr. Brewtown as he keeps you up to date on all the happenings of your Milwaukee Brewers and Major League Baseball. Follow the show on Facebook and Twitter, Brewtown Sports. Listen 24/7 at BrewtownSports.Podomatic.com.
Hi, this is Gary Mack from Mets Musings, and you're listening to BaseballPodcast.net. You can hear my show and all the other baseball podcasts at BaseballPodcast.net, the home of great baseball talk shows.
And we're back talking here on the Phillies Talk Podcast, talking baseball. And to round out the Phillies Talk portion of the show, I thought it would be good to recap some of the stats that we've seen so far from the team. Michael Franco leads in RBIs as of the time we're doing this podcast here, 33 RBIs. In the home runs department, he also leads that. He's got a 1 home run lead on Ryan Howard, Michael Franco with 11, Ryan Howard with 10. So despite how bad Howard has been doing, he's only got a 145 batting average going into today's game with the Diamondbacks. Hard to believe. He still has 10 home runs. So the offensive production there is still lingering for Howard. He's just really probably upset that this is his last year with the Phillies. That could come into play with him as well. The Phillies organization is the only organization that Howard has known as a baseball player. So despite him earning the mega millions, over $100 million contract, quite a lot of money to play baseball, I'm sure down deep that this must be bothering him, knowing that this is his last season with the Phillies as a player. So stolen bases, Obadell Herrera with 9 as we do the podcast here. Triples, 4. Cesar Hernandez leading that. Tyler Goodell with 3 triples on the season. Peter Bourjos has added 2 in for the Phillies, but some of these players just are not everyday players, and Bourjos and Goodell, I think we could realize that they are probably not everyday Major League Baseball players, position players. Probably good fill-ins, though. For hits, total hits on the team, Obadell Herrera with 75 as we do the podcast here on the first day of summer, June 20th, 2016, and that about wraps up the Phillies coverage for this portion of the show. And rounding out the show is a few clips that I've assembled from over the last couple years, just the last 1 or 2, even one back to 2012, I believe I assembled. By no means the best. This isn't a best of what Jimmy and I had done over the years. It's more of a dedication for him, to him, and some of the fun times that we've had with the podcast in doing the show. So I hope you like the remainder of the show, and continue to tune in for more great baseball talk, a lot more guests, authors, as the show has always had. And here's the last couple clips of the show. Some things I chose out of random from the show. There was a lot of great interviews to choose from. I could have made this about an hour or two show just on its own if I wanted to do that for a best of, but by no means is this that. It's just a couple of nice clips that I've assembled for you to listen to and dedicated to Jimmy. Well, thanks for listening, and here they are. Of the hundreds of shows that Jimmy and I did on Phillies Talk Podcast, only the longtime listeners probably know that only a few of them were recorded actually when Jimmy and I were in the same room. Most of the time it was me calling Jim in a conference call type of setup called TalkShoe. That's who we signed on with early on to do the podcast, and we stayed with them very long time. We stayed with them probably about 9 years, and most of our shows had been recorded that way. With the advent of the telecommunications, which brings you all into the same room, and it sounds like you're all in the same studio. But most recently, I was talking to Jimmy about him possibly getting a tablet to record the shows. We could go right from Skype to Skype, and that really improved the fidelity of the broadcast, and it really made it seem like we were in the same studio, quote unquote, most of the time when we did the few shows that we did with the tablet. So here's a broadcast that we did the last couple months when Jimmy first got the tablet, and he was learning to work with it and get to start to trust technology a little bit. He was always a bit of the old school type of person, didn't necessarily trust the technology, but it was hilarious to work with him and help him get the tablet going early on. And again, this was just in the last couple months of this broadcast. So we're talking 2016 in the springtime. Here's some of our pre-show talk where we had just connected the tablet, and Jimmy was really amazed with the fidelity and just the overall way that the Skype worked on it. Have a listen. All right.
All right. Oh, what a great thing this is, Rich.
Yeah.
That's great. So what are we going to talk about?
The Fightin' Phils.
Well, I know that, but you know.
I've got some things here. Pitchers and catchers report.
Okay.
February
You ready to do
19th.
You ready to do the show there, buddy?
Yes, that is. Let me make sure the recorder is on.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I had called you back the other day. I didn't get a hold of you, but believe it or not, we're doing this 10 years as of this year.
With what?
We're on this for 10 years.
Oh, my God. It's hard to believe. Are you kidding me?
Nope.
Wow.
In June.
Wow. All right, my good friend. Ready? You ready to rock and roll?
Yep. Hang on 1 second here. I just want to... A lot of people don't realize the amount of work that goes into actually making podcasts. Even though you're having fun, it does take a lot of time to arrange guests and connect all of the participants together, that sort of thing. Well, a couple of years ago, we talked to Gary Matthews, longtime Phillies player. He was the best player on the Phillies in 1983 when they made it to the World Series. They lost that one to the Baltimore Orioles. But in this clip on the dedication for Jimmy, we're going to tune into a little pre-show talk that we had with Gary Matthews. And really, Jimmy and Gary Matthews hit it off like old buddies right off the bat. I sat back just listening to it, and they were tossing back and forth names that they both remembered from old-time players that a lot of the people in my generation probably wouldn't recognize, but they got along famously before the show, and I knew right off the bat that this show was going to be awesome because they just had such a repertoire going early on did Jim and Gary Matthews. So let's tune into this clip. It's a little pre-show connection where I was calling Gary Matthews through the book publisher, and they got in touch with him and put him in tune with our show, and then we launched the show right off the bat from there. Another thing is you'll probably listen to Jimmy's always raring to go on these podcasts. Towards the end of this clip, he'll be like, all right, let's get this show on the road, so that was always his forte, why I was back there tinkering with all of the fine-tuning, so to speak, getting us all together on the network and making sure the sound was good. So let's tune into this little clip here, pre-show, with our special talk with Gary Matthews from just a few years ago, around Thanksgiving time in 2012.
Hello, Rich.
Hello, James.
What's up, bud?
How are you?
Nothing much, man. Nothing much. Standing there waiting for your call, hoping, standing by the window in case it didn't ring.
Right.
So you ready, everybody?
Yep. Shall we get Sarge on the line?
Yeah.
All right. Let me see his number here. So what do you want, like a 25-minute?
Yeah, something like that. 20, 25, yeah. I got some questions for him. Well, he's unbelievable with his research. Man.
Yeah.
Ooh, in that book.
So we'll do a minute or so with the current news.
Yeah.
And then I'll introduce him.
Right.
4681. All right, let me bring him up here.
You are muted.
I'm going to try to welcome some people on that might be joining us.
You are unmuted.
We'll be starting the show in about 5 to 7 minutes. Thank you for stopping by Phillies Talk Podcast on the FightinPhillies.com site. Please stay tuned.
You are muted.
What?
Huh?
What's she saying?
She's saying you are muted.
Oh.
All right.
I got another book for you from the play, too, so you have another coupon.
Thank you.
You have to use it by the end of the year. I'm sure you'll go up there before. Because Lancaster and Christmas is cool.
Uh-huh.
Where does he live, Rich? Philly?
What's that?
Where does he live, Philly?
I don't know. I don't know where this is. 4, 6, 8,
Oh, the
1.
thing's beeping. The thing beeped once.
All right. Getting Sarge on the line. I'm going to ask him to record a...
while your party is reached.
I'm going to have him do a promo for us. That's a cool ringer.
Hello?
Hello, is this Gary Matthews?
Yeah, this is Gary.
Hey, how you doing, Gary? It's Rich Baxter from FightinPhillies.com, and I got Jim Mulry here with us also.
Okay.
How you doing, Sarge?
Good. How are you guys?
We're doing great. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Really now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're just, yeah. Rich told me. I said, no, Sarge. I said, I'll definitely be ready for that. Yeah.
So you ready to talk a little bit about your book tonight, Gary?
Sure.
All right, great.
Sure.
Thanks for agreeing to come on to the show. It's a small podcast. We have a few thousand listeners a month that are big Phillies fans.
Yeah,
so.
We had Chris Wheeler on a couple of years ago. That was a big treat too, but nothing like this, though, Gary.
Well, Cliff, he's pretty good too, though.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed interviewing him.
Yeah, he's very good, and he says what he thinks. That's what I like, you know.
Yeah, he does.
So, all right, Rich, crank this on. I got a bunch of questions for Gary.
All right.
Oh, okay. But you did. I just wanted to say that you did some amazing research. It was unbelievable. Some of the names you brought back.
Well, I felt that was very, very important for the Philadelphia history because, I mean, you go back over the years, they've had some just great players, and the number one pitcher, obviously for me, was Robin Roberts, and I went not so much on stats, and stats really did have a lot to do with it, but when you look at Robin Roberts, and I really had the opportunity working with the Phillies to be able to talk with him, speak with him, and believe it or not, he is too the guy that gave me a lot of inspiration on talking with him about different players, and when you did, he'd start to shake his head, and boy, he was getting ready to let you know what a player we were actually talking about, whether or not it was Steve Carlton or Mike Smith, or even today's player like a Roy Halladay. And boy, did Robin Roberts sure like him.
Yeah, I got a question about you. Speaking about Roy Halladay, I know you're employed by Phil. Do you think there's something wrong with his shoulder or something, or do you think he just had a bad year? Because it didn't. Rich and I discussed this during the season. It didn't seem like he had the velocity that he usually has. Do you think there might be something wrong with his shoulder?
Well, I don't think he felt the best that he has felt when he had been pitching. He's such a warrior. He's the type of guy that really never makes excuses. So you never can tell, although the velocity at times were down. But I like to think that he was just making bad pitches. And keep in mind, Roy, one of those pitchers, not like a lot of the guys in the past, that would actually knock you down. Roy doesn't do that. And reminds me a lot of Tom Seaver, who always said that he didn't have to do that to the batters. He felt he had good enough stuff to get them out with the way that he was pitching, as opposed to knocking a guy down or hitting them. Well, Roy's basically the same way, and I think the hitters really feel comfortable when Roy's out there pitching because he does have such pinpoint control. They have a tendency to feel comfortable up at the plate.
So that was our great interview with Sarge. Gary Matthews, of course, he was doing the television and radio broadcast for the games for the Phillies at that time. Always a great time to speak to the Sarge. He's one of the classic all-time, one of my favorite all-time Phillies players for sure. And as we exit this clip, I'm going to play the promo that he did for us. I had to stitch it together because it was a last-second type of thing, and I had asked him to read a little promo for us. But here's how it turned out.
Hi, this is Gary Matthews. You're listening to the Fightin' Phillies Phillies Podcast.
And here's a little pre-talk on one of our shows from 2015, about a year ago. We recorded this one. And this will be the last clip of this special dedication for Jimmy. And again, I appreciate you tuning in to this podcast for Phillies Talk. I'm going to miss Jimmy just so much. It's terrible when a good friend passes away. It's almost like you've lost a close relative, and that's the kind of mood I've been in for the past month myself. Trying to look at the positives and know that he's in a better place and all that. So again, this show is for you, Jimmy, and here is this clip where I told Jimmy this is our 249th show for Phillies Talk that we recorded on Talk Show. So we've done probably another 100 plus before that, but this was number 249 since we renamed the show, and Jimmy, of course, was always amazed and amused with that. So let's tune into this final clip of this program, and again, thanks very much for tuning in, and hope you enjoyed this show. And we actually have a listener aboard. Welcome aboard, listener. We'll be starting up in just a moment. You can hear the warts and all of our shows here on the pre-talk of Phillies Talk.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here, Jimmy. Jimmy, I wanted to let our listeners know as well, this is our, believe it or not, our 249th show that we're hosting on the Talk Shoe network.
On Talk Shoe.
Just on Talk Shoe. There's another probably 70 or so that we've done.
249, wow.
But this is show number 249 that's been hosted on Talk Shoe, and I wanted to send the kudos out to the TalkShoe.com network. They've been going strong since we renamed the show in 2008. Of course, we used to be called Philly Sports Talk Now. We used to do all the major sports in Philly many moons ago for a couple years, and then we switched to Phillies exclusively. So thanks to you, Talk Shoe. You've hosted our shows, and they're all in one place for you to listen to still. You can go back.
Yep.
And even go back to 2008 and listen to us if you want.
Yeah, really. They were some good days, man. Even the year in 2007 when they lost in the playoffs, that was still good because the Mets had a big lead. So,
yeah.
Well, Rich.
And this is how we ended show 249 when we were actually on the broadcast. It was towards the end of 2015, almost the start of 2016. So let's take us out of the broadcast here on the special dedication for Jimmy with our well wishes for the holidays to the listeners. And that's always something that Jimmy took great care in doing. He really had a lot of caring about you, the listener. I wanted everybody to know that. A lot of his focus was towards the listeners themselves. So thanks again for tuning in to this podcast of Phillies Talk. We'll talk to you on the next one. That's for sure. All right, Jimmy, happy holidays to you. Happy 2016. I think we'll probably sneak another show in before New Year's, but if we don't, we also want to wish our listeners a very happy New Year.
All right, Rich, and I can't wait. You know, 2 words I can't wait to hear again. Play ball.
Yes, indeed. Take care, Jimmy.
All right, Rich.